welcome to episode 28 of Destroy Before Listening. This is part 2 of the previous episode about Leatherface. Leatherface were a very important band for myself and guest contributor Tim Brooks, who I couldn't have done this episode without. We both dug into some fact-finding to help build a timeline with new first-hand information from band members. This part 2 covers the second era of the band, 1997 to 2013. We both felt it important to present these facts and information as a resource or guide. Many thanks to everyone who has contributed and helped us put this information together. You can follow on Instagram at Destroy Before Listening. Rest in peace, Laney. We can start with just the post-Leatherface bands. So this would be 1994. Things with those bands start happening. It's debate as to whether they were sort of formed or forming while Leatherface were ending.
Yeah, I think they were, because as far as I could tell with Dr. Bison, it was mostly the Arabs from South Wales, and they'd toured with HDQ and maybe with Leatherface, but they definitely toured with HDQ and, got on with Dickie. And I mean, they did, they recorded a bunch of really great shit. Their album's amazing. But it seemed like it was a bit of a project band because it was based in South Wales. I don't even know where they recorded. I'm assuming down there. But Pope was obviously more of a northern band, although it was Andy from Snuff was in them too, right?
Yeah, Andy Crichton's in them playing bass, and he also plays in Snuff again, which I forgot about, which is more like maybe the year after Pope split.
Yeah.
So that's like 95, 96. He's in Snuff.
And I think Snuff were back again, like theoretically back again then, which was one of the reasons why when Andy was in Leatherface, that was always the thing, was like, well, Snuff's my main band and Dickie was doing Dr. Bison. I mean, 95. Oh, yeah. So Jesse was 95, right? So Pope was 94.
Yeah, Jesse is 1995 to 1998. And that's kind of where Leighton Evans, Evo, comes in as well. He's playing in that band. They go to Japan. They've got the kind of the fame as a band.
Yeah. And then Laney was doing stuff with Graham, who comes in the picture way later on. Yeah. So Laney was doing Rugrat and Bull Tacker with Graham.
Rugrat and Bull Tacker is sort of 95, 96.
So that's probably the same time that Dickie was doing Dr. Bison. I don't know how much they were doing because I don't really remember them touring or anything. I'm sure they did, but I don't remember. But I know Pope and Jesse did a fair amount. So Stubbs also did a solo record then, didn't he?
Yeah, Frankie does solo releases in 95. There's a 7-inch. There's a sort of mini album in 2000, and then sort of singles in 2018 and 2020.
Yeah, and then during that period, there still was Leatherface records coming out because they did the Live in Oslo, and then the split with Jawbox, and they did the discography stuff that Rejected did in 98.
That's later on. And part 1 is the live recordings, and part 2 is the sort of independent singles, or the ones that aren't licensed with Roughneck.
And that was 98, which is theoretically kind of when the band were getting back together again. So I don't know whether that was tied into it or it was already planned, whether they just were like, oh, fine, we'll put these out then.
Never would around someone try to help or understand. You'll
the real beginning of part 2 was like 97.
Yeah, it's the end of 97. It's sort of, it must be around about this time, 97, really, they kind of start fully getting into it. Well, there's a tour, I think they do like a week or so in maybe December 97, and that's Leighton Evans. And yeah, Leighton Evans says, when the boat reformed, I actually started out on bass. I played bass in Jesse with Frankie, and I already knew Dickie and Laney really well at that point too. Dickie came into the studio occasionally as we were recording the Jesse LP, and liked my bass playing. As relations had thawed between Frankie and Dickie, the discussions around getting back together started. Dickie was always saying about how there was a ton of interest and America was on the cards because the band never toured there originally.
Yeah, and goes on the next thing with Welly from Four Letter Word, Artcore magazine, fanzine, which is, one of the longest running zines. And Welly's been in the scene, really deep in it for a long time. And he's good mates with Frankie and all that. So, Four Letter Word got on BYO with Sean Stern from Youth Brigade. And they toured in America, Four Letter Word did, and hung out with Sean Stern, played a lot of shows with them. And Welly was saying that Sean Stern loved Leatherface. And, it seems like this makes perfect sense of how this beginning connection with America started. And this is what Welly says. He said, I told Sean Stern on the phone, and then he asked me to ask him about signing as he was a big fan. Talked Frankie into it, basically. I said it'd be great to both be on the label. BYO was nothing to him. I thought it'd be cool. Maybe we could do a tour. And then BYO cooked up the split LP idea, and Hot Water Music took over, and we were out of the frame. I remember being at Sean's in Venice Beach in 98, and he was playing Mush and trying to get them to sign, which makes perfect sense because the Hot Water Music thing was really the impetus for them to go to America, I think, because it was a really good way to get there. Hot Water Music were pretty hot at the time. And a lot of Americans, their first way of hearing Leatherface was through Hot Water Music because they always were talking about that's an influence. If you listen to Hot Water Music, you can hear the influence, and they're totally straight up about it, right? There's some talk that Hot Water Music called Frankie and said, come to America and all that. So it's a bit murky about that stuff, but that makes sense.
Maybe that's another sort of like impetus to kind of get going and do Leatherface again and tour, come to America and play.
And in the middle of that, they did the Emmerdale appearance, which I thought was earlier, but it's 97, right?
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that or watching it again on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure it's just Frankie and Laney kind of band setting up in the pub, and you see Frankie and can you see Laney in the background, and I mean I guess got paid for it.
Yeah, I never found out why they did it, how they got it.
Yeah, that's bizarre, isn't it? Yeah.
I remember it and people talking about it. I never saw it actually on TV, but I saw it years later.
It's like we want to sort of dodgy looking punk characters for this episode. Who do we get?
Yeah, kind of random. It seems like they were all down to get it together. I mean, as much to go to America as anything, it seems like, maybe I'm wrong, but which makes sense. But then we get into 98 and Dickie moves to London, where he goes and stays with a bunch of the Welsh lot who were living in London at the time. And then he just does odd jobs, bricklaying and whatever, like they were all doing down there. And I think they were just on a London party trip down there and he stayed. So then Dickie kind of doesn't come back to do Leatherface. So that's when Leighton, who'd been playing bass, moves to guitar. Then Dave Burden, who was in former Cellmates, joins on bass. And this is in 98. So Dave says, I played the Hot Water Music split and did the Boat's first American tour in 99. I ended up joining when I bumped into Stubbs in a bar, got chatting. I told him I was a fan and if I needed a bass player to give me a shout. I thought he was joking when he asked me, to be honest. Dickie left in 98 when all the songs were written and demoed for the Hot Water Music split. Eva was playing bass at the time and wanted to move guitar, and that's when Stubbs asked me. So that was the beginning, really the beginning of part 2, because that's the recording which came out on the Hot Water Music split. At that same time, 98, Dickie does Stocko with Golly at HDQ. And
oh, shit, it's Stocko. Because it's
Stocko.
Yeah.
In the history of Dickie's music career, Golly's pretty much there from the beginning to the end. Actually, Dickie does more things with Golly than anybody else, you know, because he does them, and then later on we get to the Jones, and he did HDQ Reform later. He did HDQ back in the day, and then he does that band with Ian Sibrey, who was in Ran and Red Alert, who sadly passed. But that little link goes back to the stuff that Laney was doing with Rugrat and Bull Taco, because they were all mates, because Graham was also in Ran. So it's all that interconnected northern blokes, and the Red Alert thing, which Dickie does later.
Yeah.
So then we're on to 99. And then what happens, mate?
Yeah, right. 99. Well, that's the split with Hot Water Music. It comes out on BYO, and that's when they do the first American tour. It's definitely, at that point, it's more of an up-and-coming, successful band to tour with at that point. I've got another quote from Dave Burden here. It's the first gig I played was a packed out garage in London with Snuff, Wat Tyler, Southport and Blocko. The place was packed and it blew my mind. The next gigs I played were smaller ones in the US. As a 21-year-old kid who barely left his own town, they were all crackers to me. I think those tours, when they first got back together, laid the foundation for Americans going crazy for them. I feel like they're bigger now. Their legend has grown in the States than they ever were when I was with them.
I think that's true. You know, I think that Leatherface were definitely, in America, they were like the band's band. You know, people in bands loved them. People who wrote at Max Rock and Roll loved them. But I don't know whether the general people, you know, the people who liked Hot Water Music probably weren't that familiar with them then. And I think, yeah, that first tour, you know, and that was, you know, 23 years ago, whatever. Now everyone's touring everywhere, and that's just everyone takes it for granted, right? We take it for granted that we have people coming from England here now. It's just what happens. But even back then, in our world, there was way less people going to America on tour. People did it. Welly did it with 4 Letter Word. Welly went on tour with KSUK over here. And, there were bands coming, but less, particularly from that era, that scene. People weren't sort of big enough to get to America, I don't think. That was really what they always wanted to do, was get to America, I think,
Yeah, we should just say that you're in America as well, so you're speaking from the perspective of like English bands coming over.
Yeah, because I didn't really see any. I moved here, I was here in 96 and I moved here properly in 2001. So I wasn't here when they did that first tour. But when I got here, they had just been here, a year or two before. And they still weren't big. I think they were bigger on the second tour, which was 2000. We get a 2000. They do their next LP, Horsebox, which is pretty soon after they did that split. And we were trying to get our heads around whether or not they'd written a lot of those tracks at the same time as the Hot Water Music split,
Yeah, they probably did, I think. Definitely.
Because it sort of sounds like it. When you listen to the songs, it does sound like a continuation of a similar era, because it was within a year. And also to put out a split in 99 and then a year later to do a full LP, again on BYO, was pretty fast. And then they were back in America again in 2000. And then at the same time, Dickie was in London. And I apologise to Glover because he did send me a load of voice messages, which I lost, explaining all the time of the Jones. So Welly was down there with all the Welsh guys and he did the Jones, which also had Golly in them. And later they were called Fatty Jones. And that LP, if people haven't heard it, the Jones LP is really great. Like, it's real classic Dickie stuff, with a lot of those Welsh guys who are also really good.
You were the only one who noticed.
Yeah, I think that release Horsebox on BYO, that was their first proper standalone record in America. And on the back of the Hot Water Music, I think they were getting a bit more play over here. People started paying a bit more attention to them outside of sort of the diehards, you know?
So this is the second US tour as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they were straight back again. And at the time, I don't know whether they did a European tour at that time.
I'm not sure about the UK.
Yeah,
I know that they played with Hot Water Music in the UK, but I'm not sure about this second, the Horsebox, if there was a sort of UK tour for that.
yeah. I
I
don't
would
know.
imagine, but like, I don't know.
But the fact that it was on BYO, which was definitely an American label, was interesting because no one, I mean, it made it to England, obviously, but it was definitely, BYO was an American label. So yeah, they did that second tour. And then when they came back from the second tour, I think they kind of really took a break, you know, and I think a couple of the guys had kids and they sort of took a step back.
Yeah, Leighton Evans leaves the band as well after Horsebox.
That's right. That's right. And one of the things he says is Frankie never sang on any new songs until we were in the studio. Practicing was always just music in my time with him. So all songs were instrumentals that were recorded. Recording was literally just putting a couple of mics in the room and us playing live into the desk. He said that demo sounds way better than Horsebox. It'd be interesting to hear.
It seems like these demos really, to him, sound better, and you know, would be an interesting comparison, sort of like A being his, or the sort of more raw versions, I would imagine, of Horsebox songs.
Yeah. And I think at the time, and this is something that's come up a lot, right? Even from the beginning, was the idea that maybe Leatherface was like Dickie and Frankie and that was it. You know, everyone else were just players in the band. But when we talked to Dave and he was like, no, he says Stubbs was always adamant that we were a band, not just Frankie and the guys. He encouraged writing and singing contributions. I think we all had credits here and there on Horsebox, including Laney singing on it. However, none of us were as good at it as Stubbs, so naturally he wrote the majority. So, you know, he was definitely keen to have it as a full band setup. And I think that record and the split with Hot Water Music, it sounds a lot like the stuff they'd done earlier. Like the lineage, they didn't become a new band, you know, and I wonder whether Dickie wrote a lot of that split meant that they sort of carried on into Horsebox, because Horsebox is a great album.
I've got the first line.
Warm-blooded stereotype, bell and faults, and that our birthright. Be brash, bold, and beautiful, but clear and cold, cold and upright. Was lyrical. Your face and open your heart if that's for surgery. And open your mouth and move your face and open your heart if that's for surgery. And open your mouth to move your face and open your heart. Rather than be phoned, and I'm as happy here as I would be over there. My hair is beyond repair. We can look, but your just don't stand. It's lyrical. Open your mouth and move your face. the sun. Some you expect more or less. You should face to face when you lay at rest. What do you got on your side past? Never hold him back. His eyes are strong. His head was full of romance. His ears are best. His arms are holds your face. He holds his head. He's small on it is. He's by the sun. You do all you can, but you can't do it over again. All that he had was all that he ever said. He would never said any of it. No way any of it. Remember God's will, no longer here. Even the stoner remembers the cold on the sounds. You can not hear, not nowhere. The stoner remembers the cold on the sounds. You can listen. Now you are there to lose. Nothing gonna back through. Song bad song. The touch of my stock as a song. Strong enough for anyone. The flowers right on your place. The kind around your face. Your hair blurry nice space. Oh, you're flying the woods. Oh, I watch it like this. Get the pay. Soul is in it. The soul is in it. Remember Mark's man is on the head. Even the stone remembers the gold on his stems. You can not hear the door. Stone remembers how fucking cold his embers.
It seems like that era, after they'd done the 99, 2000, and they were playing a lot, recording obviously a lot, you know, when they got back, it seems like they really just kind of took a step back from 2001 to 2003, right?
Yeah. Well, I've got a quote because I'd asked Mickey McGuinness. He played in Generic and Ebola and the band Gin. They'd recorded with Frankie as well around this time, so like 20 years ago. He knew Frankie from way back, like mid-80s, you know, when Frankie was doing Evil Mothers. The quote is, obviously talk turned fairly quickly to Dickie and his lifestyle in London. Dickie was wasting his talents, according to Frankie, by working on a building site and not playing music.
I mean, that's a good idea of kind of like where Dickie was. You know, I think he was just busy having a time down in London, right? Didn't seem that interested in going back home or playing, and whatever he was playing was just with his mates in London at the time, right? So that 2004 was when they released the Dog Disco album, which is the one that stands out. And we're not going to go too deep into it, I don't think. But they released Dog Disco on BYO. It has a terrible cover, but we'll get to some of the art stuff later.
Yeah. The cover, to describe it, is a dog with sunglasses and a sort of psychedelic background. It's just totally not in keeping with any aspect of the band, or it's just not representational of, it's a kind of turn off, isn't it, really, for a lot of people.
It is, and a lot of people have talked about that being kind of a flat album. And actually listening to it, and we were talking about this, it's actually, the songs are actually good. And I think what makes it not sound like a Leatherface record, and maybe more like some of Frankie's stuff he's done separately, is that there isn't the two guitars. And it's showing from Horsebox and the Split that even without Dickie in them, they still sounded like Leatherface, right? The Leatherface sound is that two guitars. And I think that's what's missing from it that made people feel like it wasn't a total Leatherface album. But actually listening to it, it is a decent album. It just is less of a Leatherface album. Evo had left, not acrimoniously. I think he was just like, yeah, I'm done with doing this right now. And he left. So they carried on as a three-piece. Yeah, as a three-piece, they toured without Laney as well. So it was just two younger dudes and Frankie, and I think that's what was missing from the original kind of spark of Leatherface, right? So it was, yeah, and I think Dave mentions that at one point where he was just kind of like, oh, we went on tour, we went to America, and it felt like it was just Frankie and two kids, so it was a bit weird, But anyway, they carried on. They didn't do a ton on the back of Dog Disco, but they did UK and Europe gigs that year, but no USA, right? So that was 2000. So then 2005 is really the beginning. I mean, that was sort of the mid Leatherface period. And then 2005 is the beginning of the third period almost, right?
Yeah, the sort of lead up to getting the band into shape again with more permanent members, one of whom is Graham Phillips-Kirk, who joins in 2006, I think. And he was in Rugrat and Bull Taco.
Yeah, and Laney comes back to play drums.
Yeah, I guess to start writing or jamming again with, like, he's the guy, who goes way back with the band.
Yeah. And 2005, I think the big thing about 2005 was Dickie going back to Sunderland. So he moves home and Dickie starts playing with the Upstarts, and that kind of carries on his link with the old bands like Red Alert and the Upstarts, because he does that record, The Dipsomaniacs, with Carstein Smith from Red Alert and some other dudes from Red Alert and the Upstarts. And that was 2005. And 2005 was when Dickie was like, and Dave says, Dickie moved back to Sunderland around 2005 and was drinking the same bar as us. After some lengthy discussions, it was decided to do a trial run short tour to see if it was a good idea. I did a few tours with me and the original lineup, A Fucking Dream Come True, then bounced out of there. And then Dave just says he did all the tours from 99 to 06, 07, America a few times, Europe, Australia and Japan, some of the best and worst times of my life. So yeah, after they did that first little mini tour in 2005 was what I see as the real beginning of the second era, right?
Well, that's them getting bigger. If they do sort of like a world tour, that's when they get a substantial presence in America and Canada. And there's the tribute record, the compilation that comes out, and that's on a Canadian label, and I think that's 2008.
Yeah, when they came here, the later 2000s, which was this era when Dickie was in them, it was when there was a big festival in Texas, Chaos and Teas, they played at, and they were seen as being, when even a few years previous, people saw them as like a sort of as kind of underground band. By the time we got to the mid 2005, 6, 7s, when they came over here, they were seen as like a legendary band. At that point, I think the word had gone around enough, and because they'd toured before, that when they were playing, it was bigger venues, not massive, but bigger venues, and people were going out to see them, and everyone was fucking juiced. Like it was a big deal.
Well, by that point, they're like a legacy band, really. They've got the whole kind of fucking mush behind them,
Yeah, they were a legacy band, but also bands like Hot Water Music and Dillinger 4 were bigger as well, and always were talking about them, and so it became a bit more of a juggernaut. So then when they came, because they'd already laid foundations, when they came to America, they were definitely seen as a big sort of legacy band that everyone wanted to go see play the hits, But they also went to Australia and Japan, and they were touring a lot during that period and not recording, interestingly. So those years they were really present and they were doing a lot. And like you said, the tribute compilation came out in 2008.
They must have been, I guess, writing songs for Stormy Petrol, which is 2010, and that's on No Idea Records, which is, that's a bigger label, or indie label at that point.
Yeah, at the time, I mean, I feel like No Idea doesn't really exist the same way it did, but at the time, 2010, 2005 to 12, whatever, No Idea was really, they did like Against Me, who got really popular. They did all Hot Water Music. They were pretty big at the time, and they were a big indie label. They had a big distribution. They were in everything. It was easy to get, although, weirdly, when that record came out, they didn't press tons and tons of them. And, if you look at it now, they did reissue it, but if you look at it now, like it's the original pressings are going for loads of money. Yeah, $50, $60, $70. But they reissued it on white much later on, which you can still get. But the original one is expensive. But when they did that was kind of a big deal, and I think that that album is really good. You know, it definitely came out as like it was the first real Dickie Back in the Band record since 94, right?
Laney doesn't drum on this album either. It's Stephen Mush, who I think
That's right.
I think must be a Canadian guy, and there's just a touring drummer, which is Steve Owen, is that guy for the touring around Stormy Petrel. So yeah,
I know they had a big connection with people in sort of the northern parts of the Midwest of America. They were really good friends with people in Minneapolis, Dillinger Four dudes, and really good friends with people in Canada. And later on, Dickie did that Medication album, which was half Canadian and half them, because it was Graham and Dickie and then these two dudes from St. Catharines and another band. So they really connected with people over here.
it's Medication as well.
Oh, is it? Medication?
Yeah. When they go over to America, there's the two split 7 inches, and one's with Ninja Gun, who they're an American band, and Yesterday's Ring is the Canadian band. And I think that some of those people are in that Medication.
Yeah, it's people from Yesterday's Ring and this band St. Catharines is those people. So they obviously made a big connection when they were touring to do that kind of stuff. But that was a big time for them, a big time for people. I think for people here, I don't remember what it was like in England for Leatherface at that time.
Well, when I saw them, it must have been around, what was like 10 years ago, it was 2012, 2013. They were supporting Dillinger 4. There is YouTube footage of them playing in Durham. That's just Frankie and Dickie. We're just some kids. I don't know who they are.
After Stormy Petrel, which had a different drummer on the recording and then a different drummer on the tours, when they got back, 2011, Laney came back to drum again.
Yeah. Well, he was definitely playing drums when I saw them. He was playing Stormy Petrel songs.
And he was doing the rejects then too, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was Cockney Rejects.
Yeah.
I think he's on a record, isn't he?
He is.
I think he is, yeah.
And they toured here, and I don't remember. I saw them here around that time, and I don't remember whether he was playing drums for them, but he probably was. And so after 2010, they came back and were doing a lot of stuff in the UK, I guess, and they did that Meditation thing.
Yeah, that's recorded in 2014. Maybe they tracked it when they were over there and sort of kind of mixed it or added stuff remotely after the fact, because it's released in 2016. That's kind of like after Dickie, obviously.
Yeah. And then that period, which is also interesting, is that HDQ reformed after years. They did Lost in Translation in 2013.
Yeah.
And then they did 2 singles. So they did the Hand Me Downs in 2013, and they did a Lost in Translation LP, and then they did another single, When Worlds Collide, in 2014. So yes, 1 LP, 2 singles. And I know they were playing, but I don't think they toured. I think they were just doing the gigs here and there.
Yeah.
At that point. And that was Laney was in them and Golly and everyone, So that was interesting. They got back together. But again, Dickie had always been playing with those guys, It was the same sort of faces from back in the day, which I think he always quite liked. Because Laney was in the original HTQ, so it was Laney and Dickie and Golly again doing the same shit. And they actually recorded, and that was a time when Leatherface weren't recording. He was doing that. And I don't know what Frankie was doing at the time, because Leatherface was definitely still around.
Coming to town to a camp full of words.
So that was 2011, 12, 13. 14 was the last HTQ thing. And then Dickie was pretty sick by that point. And then he unfortunately dies in 2015.
Yeah.
Which was a big shocker for everyone. And you really realized at the time when that happened, sort of the amount of effect Dickie had, not just musically, people who from far away were like, oh my God, it's Dickie Hammond, fuck. But I think more for the connections that Dickie made as a person around the world, particularly around the UK. Everyone from the early 80s on, everyone had a Dickie story, right?
Yeah.
Like from every town, everyone had a Dickie story of how he was a larger than life, absolute top lad. So that was a big shocker for people, for everyone in the scene, and still is,
Laney died this year, unfortunately, as well. The core of the band is There Was Only Funky Left now.
Yeah. And as far as we could tell, I can't see anything musically that Laney did after 2015 either. The band stopped and Dickie died. It seems like Laney kind of stopped. But, he had kids and they've been at it for such a fucking long time. He was still, up until the end, he was still doing the Rejects, Upstarts, Red Alert, Yeah, as far as I could tell, the last recording he did was also, because he did 2012, he recorded with the Rejects, and then 2014, Laney recorded with HTQ. So that, as far as I could tell, that was him and Dickie's last recordings, was that HTQ stuff. And that obviously was the end of the band, 2015.
Also, anecdote here about the track on the last album, Stormy Petrol, and that's the song Isn't Life Just Sweet? That goes way back. I know there's an instrumental demo version of it, and I'm not entirely sure if it was meant to be on Dog Disco and just sort of didn't end up obviously on that album, because Leighton Evans says that he never knew they redid the song when Dickie had rejoined. He personally stumbled across it on YouTube a few years ago, and it was described as a song from Stormy Petrol, but he recognised it as him on bass from the initial Reformation. He thinks this would have been about 98, possibly even late 97, as he'd started doing tours then, and they would have had definitely had new material.
It's interesting that maybe they kept stuff from way back when to bring back 13 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, that also goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Horsebox. It's like, I wonder if they just had loads of different songs they were tossing around and they were like, oh, we'll use these for the split. And then they revisited them for Horsebox, rather than we're only writing 6 songs, they're going to come out. Oh, we're going to write 10 songs, they're going to come out. It sounds like they just had all these ideas flowing around, which is when they were talking about how Dickie had just loads of just random guitar lines that they had that they would just pull from to get songs from. So it sort of says a little bit about how they wrote and recorded, and going back to the thing that everything was just music, was always instrumental until they recorded, meant that they probably just demoed all of these ideas, and then built the tracks off them. mean, I think one of the things that we've talked about with recording is that Frankie obviously does it, has done it for many years as a job, and I think he probably wanted it to be more of a job than sometimes it was. But the fact that Frankie always had the fascination with recording, whether it was just himself or other bands, which he did loads of, but more for, I think, the way that Leatherface recorded was that he always had these people or places in mind that he wanted to record at or with. And he really made a push to get these people to record him. And some of them didn't totally make sense, but he just loved their recording.
I guess it's just like how they did it and then how he would sort of do it in the bunker studios.
Yeah.
In Sunderland, which is like, that's famous for, I mean, recording so many bands at the bunker, and like Ramshackle as well, which was a sort of his division, I suppose, of the bunker. And I think that's with the gear that they bought when they recorded Minx, their advance, because I know this like spent their advance on recording equipment as opposed to getting it produced there. They did that themselves. And I'm not sure whether it's like one of those memories that you have of seeing something, but I'm sure I saw online fucking years ago a picture of the setup, and it was just like a computer monitor and some sort of like rack mount stuff thrown together means of recording. That's sketchy.
Yeah, but I think that was part of how Frankie would record, right? He was a bit more that kind of way.
Yeah.
Because he was doing 8-track recording for people, right, when he was at the bunker. He was recording people in the late 80s. He never produced any Leatherface records, did he?
I
don't think he did. And then definitely later on, and they got that guy, Fred Purser at Trinity Heights.
Trinity Heights is the place, like, and Fred Purser seems to be the guy. This is from Dave Burden about the recording, and he says, "We had Fred Purser recording. He was the guitar player in Penetration and Tigers of Pantang. Stubbs admired his work and was looking forward to being hands-off with the recording, so he sat back and let Fred engineer and mix all the boat records from then onwards. They got along really well and respected each other's opinions and input. It was a fucking load of fun recording with Fred. He did 2 former Cellmates albums too. Stubbs came along for those also, just to see Fred. He wants to watch how we record and just likes it."
Yeah, and I think he liked the idea of these people with these legendary old bands, because he was in Penetration and Tigers Pantang, amongst others. Adam Lee said, "Fred's the nicest, most knowledgeable, musically and technical person I've ever met in the music business. 48-track desk, 2-inch tape, really impressive, highly professional studio used by the BBC and people like Tom Jones."
Yeah.
So you can see how Frankie really liked that sort of legendary dudes making analog recordings. And it kind of shows he always had that vibe about him,
Yeah, that's Adam Lee, China Drum. Leatherface covering a China Drum song, or like covering that band. That doesn't really happen too much.
Right.
Well, I don't think any.
And we'll get onto the covers in a minute, because it's quite telling about what Frankie liked musically, or like sound-wise, that sort of goes against what maybe you'd expect.
This is Wally saying he talked all about Burgess, that's Ian Burgess, was obsessed with us going there, which is Black Box Studios in France, which Ian Burgess built and sort of operated. He told me Burgess taught him everything, and that's when he started recording. Because Ian Burgess, he's kind of famous for the Chicago sound, like the Naked Ray Gun.
He did, Naked Ray Gun, Effigies and all that stuff, and Ministry and...
Big Black.
Yes, Big Black. Right, and so Black Box was in France, and that's where all these people went. And Steve Albini, who's obviously famous, was his like sort of, he mentored Steve Albini. And you look at a lot of people he worked with, like Cows and Jawbox and Big Black. There's a certain sound to him, right?
There's some connection there with Jawbox as well, because their second album, he did that recording. And obviously they had done the live split as well. So Jay Robbins also does sort of an acoustic cover of New York State as well.
Well, let's finish the recording thing because I want to talk about the tie-in stuff. So if you want to keep talking about the recording stuff.
Frankie is working in Chloravale, and Chloravale is in Ryton, which is geographically it's south of the River Tyne, probably about 5-10 miles, say 10 miles from Newcastle. And Frankie, that's where he's recording bands in the kind of the early 2000s period. And Mickey McGuinness from Gin, who recorded there, says, as for what Frankie was doing at Chloravale, he was just trying to make a living out of music, and producing and engineering was one of his ways to bring money in. So Frankie was also working at a studio in Sunderland, somewhere near a famous scrapyard. Leatherface had stopped by then, and the royalties from the solo album were not enough to make ends meet.
It makes sense because I assume they really didn't make a ton of money off it.
No. Right? And to continue it, he says, another income stream for Frankie was making sound effects for video games. I asked him if he meant soundtracks, but he was quite specific. There was sound effects. He may have been taking the piss. As he said, he spent a lot of time going around supermarkets, squeezing melons to find the ones that would make the best sounds. I actually asked him at that point if he was taking the piss, and he was quite adamant that he wasn't.
I mean, it always feels like Frankie always wanted, he was always just part of music, and Dickie too, particularly in the late years, right? They just wanted to make a living off it. It was a different age. That kind of band, you couldn't really do it. Maybe you could now, if they were at a different time, a different place. But then people weren't really making money off bands, which is why he continued recording from like the late 80s all the way till probably now. He's probably fucking recording people as we speak. I don't know.
Well, actually, no, he's working in Nissan car factory.
Is he?
Yeah. He has been for a long time, I think.
Oh, there you go.
He does this kind of acoustic thing, solo thing, every year.
2020, right, was the last record he did.
Yeah, he just seems to play Germany every year, basically.
Comfort the afflicted, not flick the comfortable. We have heard it before. Give it just one time or just once more. We are the flames, the violate pure edge. Will we walk forevermore? Will we kill fun in the dance? Will we talk to start our romance? Will we wash it away like it's every day? Think about war. Really know what it's for. Read our stars. So into we are. And what we want.
And then going on to where the art was, because we were talking about the art, about whether or not they had like an aesthetic, which we were talking about when they did the Roughneck stuff. Obviously the first LP was on Meantime, was its own thing. Roughnecks became Domino. So everything up until the last kind of had a similar aesthetic to a degree. Then it all kind of just was all over the place a little bit, and we were talking about all the Roughneck stuff. A lot of it had a very specific look, particularly the 12 inches and the singles. There was just a load of photos on stuff, and they were quite specific about it. It was just a block lettering with a photo. That's what they did for years. And Welly says, Frankie told me he bought a Spanish photography magazine on tour, and those cover photos are all from that. He said the label would ask about the next cover, and he'd say that one to whatever photograph.
But was putting that stuff together obviously gave it the consistent sort of look.
Yeah, because then later it was all over the place.
Yeah, it went to shit really, didn't it?
It did go to shit. I mean, we were saying that, when they came back, no continuity, everything looked different. I mean, there was the Leatherface Hot Water Music split was part of a series, and they all looked like that. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Horsebox was done by John Yates, a very famous artist, but it doesn't even look like him.
Obviously, he was a sort of in-house alternative technicals guy, but it just doesn't really look particularly interesting.
And then there's Dog Disco, which is just a psychedelic dog in sunglasses.
Yeah, I don't know who did that, but that's a mess, really.
It's a mess. And then the Stormy Petrel was No Idea, and that was obviously done by the No Idea guys because it looks like a lot of the No Idea stuff. So it does fit in with that catalogue for sure, but it doesn't necessarily fit in with theirs. But if you look at the pictures, I mean, I guess that the Roughneck era does all feel like it's the same shit. But then later on, it's all over the yard. I don't think that was their thing, right? I don't know. I think they just were more interested in the music, obviously. Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was the cover versions because...
Yeah, sure.
First of all, the covers that they did, and they did tons. And a lot of bands, they do covers live or whatever. Leatherface historically recorded loads of covers. They really made them their own, from the very beginning. They did Ghetto on the first album. The people they chose were always just so weird. Like the first cover they do on a record is by Elvis Presley. They do some covers by, friends. Like they do a Dillinger 4 cover. They do two What Tyler covers, but that's because they were good mates with them.
Yeah.
They did the China drum thing, which you were saying it's like it was kind of an odd choice, but again, it's like people they knew. Snuff, they did a cover, makes sense, friends. But then an ABBA cover, Elton John, Bob Dylan, Nine Inch Nails, Iggy Pop, The Christians, The Damned, The Police, Nick Cave, Tracy Chapman, Angelic Upstart, Cyndi Lauper, Pine Ridge Boys. I mean, it's such a fucking random mix that you wouldn't expect it.
Well, also to quote Welly again is, I said to Frankie once that I thought their Police cover was interesting because I thought that I always detected an influence. And he told me the Police were his favourite band.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't.
There you go, the Police.
There you go. You wouldn't think it, And then on the other side of that, there's so many covers by other people of Leatherface songs. But, in the world of underground music, there tends not to be a band that everyone's covering. You know what I mean? Like in our world, it's the subculture of punk, particularly the later 80s, 90s bands. I can't think of anybody that has 30 bands covering them.
No, it's quite a difficult band to cover, to do a cover version of as well, really, or to learn it. It's, it's not easy.
A lot of people are really influenced by them. I mean, there's loads. People like, 4-letter word, but they're friends, right? So that makes sense. What Tyler do covers, they're friends. So that makes sense. But when you look at some of the American bands who covered them, particularly ones who have become quite legendary, like Hot Water Music covered them. Radon, who aren't really well known, but a Florida band who are really kind of legendary in that sound, right? That band, St. Catherine's from Canada, the Tim version, another Florida type band, Tilt Wheel from San Diego. A lot of American bands later on covered them. And I think that's quite telling to the impact they made abroad, right? Both here and like Japan. is that how many people fucking covered him and still do it.
Yeah.
You know, because there's just so many that, and I think a lot of them are obviously from those albums, but it's pretty interesting that they've managed to, you know, so many people say that they're an influence, and I think that's rarer than most bands. You can't think of many bands who have had that kind of influence of a modern band. You know, people can talk about bands from the 70s or whatever, but a modern band that people are still going, and people are talking about saying, oh, they're the reason we are, or they're the reason we sound like, is pretty interesting.
To round off, it would be to say that the Mush and Minx, or they've been reissued by Call of the Void, which is a label I don't really know anything about.
They have recently, very recently come out. And I mean, forever, you know, Mush was really hard to get and very collectible. You know, the album came out originally Roughneck, and then it was reissued.
It's Fire, isn't it?
Yeah, it was reissued on Fire. Then there was a 2012 Black Label reissued it for a tour, 2012, and then Fire reissued it in 2015, and then Call of the Void did it 2 years ago. Call of the Void is it's a sub-label of Fire.
Oh, okay then.
So that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did the box set. They've reissued those albums. Yeah, Fire did that Razor Blades and Aspirins in 2015, which was the 90 to 93 stuff, which is a really great like triple LP. Because prior to that was what we talked about was the Rejected Records ones, which was just it was the live and then the singles. But the Razor Blades and Aspirin was Fill Your Boots, Mush, and Minx, you know, with the original covers and everything.
I don't know how they sound. I'm sure I've saw some things people saying they sound a bit shit.
I have those, but I've never played them back to back.
Yeah.
So I can't tell. Everything sounds like a Ripcord demo from my stereo, so it's like whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But there was a liner notes were done by a New York guy.
Was that Jack Rabbit?
Right. And people have said there's lots of like things that are wrong in it.
Okay.
You know, so that's the other thing I've heard is like a lot of the stuff he's written isn't totally correct. Oh, you know what's interesting is that the last was on Domino in 94, but BYO, they reissued it in 2001 on CD with Pope tracks. Yeah.
With Pope tracks?
Yep.
Did they?
Yep.
That's
There's
bizarre.
a CD reissue in 2001 of BYO, and it has the last, and then it has Pope tracks after it.
Which Pope tracks? Just
Plebs, Fine, Red House, Laughing Melancholia, Promised, King Sane, Cracks, Alone. Basically, it's the John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Yeah.
It's that on CD on the end of last, missing a track.
Oh.
Never knew.
I don't know the last time you listened to the Pope stuff. It's a bit of a dirge to get through, really, in one sitting. It's like, fucking hell, you know?
Yeah.
A bit miserable. It's a bit like down. It's a bit down.
Yeah, it's a bit down. But I think there's a fair element of Frankie, that's how it would be if he had his wherewithal, you know, particularly in later years. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what he would do because his acoustic stuff is more that way.
Yeah.
And so if he was just running a show, that's more likely what it would be. Maybe. I don't know. I was always a Dickie person. I liked HDQ. I liked Dr. Bison. I liked all the stuff he's done, and I listened to all of that. But I only listen to Frankie when he's in Leatherface, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The Peel sessions as well are going to be released.
Oh, are they?
That's through Little Rocket, which is like Graham Phillips-Kirk's label, who puts out all the kind of related Leatherface and related all the bands they've played with and stuff.
I just looked it up because there's a really great John Peel site. I don't know if you ever go to it. That has all hundreds of John Peel shows on.
Yeah.
You could type in a band and it'll say when he played them, and you can go to the show and listen to the show of him playing them. He played them once in 1989, twice in 1990. 91, he played them in May, September, twice, 4, 5, 6 times in September from Mush. He played Not a Day Goes By, How Lonely. Then he played I Don't Really Want to Say It, You Are My Sunshine. So he played them like 10 times in 91. And then 92, he played stuff from Compact and Bijou, and he played stuff from the Hops and Barley split with Wat Tyler. He loved that shit, so he played that.
Yeah.
And then 93, he played Do the Right Thing, and then something from Minx, and then that was it. He never played them again.
This dark satanic films, this green and pleasant hills, could be right into Lancashire, with all its witchcraft and industrial there. You can hear a melancholy desert song. It's my George Orwell eyes and the funeral goes on. It's blinded with a license, the prostate joke, up to develop the ultimate building. And Moxie's bleed. We are this world, and we watch the sand drain from it. We're not you, but happy. We've all seen the big red bus, faces gazing expressionless. The breakfast joint that killed a beast, absorbed the sea for all manner of dangerous things. There it comes again, as melancholy as the last one. When your feelings are as manic as the next, it's time to read into what it is that you do.